Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to dive into this one with you. We're looking at a fascinating piece of source material today called Voices from the Infernal Threshold. Now, usually when we hear the word infernal, right, our minds instantly jump straight to fire, brimstone, pitchforks, the whole shebang. But what if we completely reframe that? Today, we're going to look at this infernal threshold not as some place of physical torture, but as a psychological waiting room. It's like this bizarre conceptual gallery where various entities are literally trapped, but they're trapped with their own thoughts, actions, and twisted perceptions of reality.
It's a pretty profound thought, isn't it? What if hell is literally just a reflection of your own psychology? As we go through this explainer today, I really want you to think about whether the monstrous, bizarre, and, frankly, totally alien perspectives we're about to unpack, what if they're actually just mirrors? Mirrors reflecting deeply human psychological states, our cognitive errors, and honestly, our incredibly fragile grasp on consciousness itself. We're going to meet 5 distinct entities today, and each one of them offers a radically different philosophical take on what it actually means to be aware, to make choices, and, well, to suffer the consequences of those choices.
Okay, let's map out our journey. We have 5 distinct exhibits in our psychological gallery today. First, merging psyche and physical reality. Second, devouring the ebbing consciousness. Third, the war of cognitive errors. Fourth, whispering to annihilate futures. And finally, determinism in the hive mind. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. Merging Psyche and Physical Reality. So we're kicking off our exploration with a rather whimsical yet deeply regretful entity. It's a human wizard. But to really understand his epic mistake, we first need to talk about qualia. If you're not familiar, qualia is basically our internal, subjective, conscious experiences. Think about the specific redness of a red apple or exactly how that apple tastes to you. Well, the wizard's grand hubris was that he attempted this massive spell to literally merge the physical world with these psychological qualia. He essentially wanted to realistically manifest his own internal psyche right into the objective world, trying to make the two completely indistinguishable. But, as you might guess, things went horribly, horribly wrong. His spell completely failed. The wizard actually laments, of course, being confined to some nether region after a lifetime of close to perfection, such a sad end, no? And man, the irony here is just palpable. This is a guy who had the power to transmute reality, to literally revive the dead. But his greed, his desire to play architect with the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, that's what led to his total confinement. And so he just sits there now, trapped alongside his own house, constantly asking why after having such a storied, near-perfect career.
So what's the crucial philosophical takeaway here? It's that the wizard's tragedy is entirely self-inflicted. He explicitly rejects the idea that some eternal, chaotic determinism of nature put him there. No, he fully acknowledges that it was his own greedy decision, his very own free will that ruined his life. This version of hell is basically the ultimate manifestation of personal accountability. He tried to forcefully cram his subjective reality onto the objective world, and well, the universe pushed back hard.
Moving on to Section 2, devouring the ebbing consciousness.
All right, here the tone shifts from sad regret to something much, much more predatory. We meet an alien creature, and it gives us a genuinely terrifying look at just how vulnerable our minds really are. The text contrasts 2 states of the human mind, when we're awake and actively conscious, versus when we're asleep or in what it calls an ebbing state. It specifically attacks when our psychological defenses drop. Think about that sort of zombie-like state you get into when you're endlessly doom-scrolling or just stuck in a deep, monotonous rut. That right there, that is exactly when this parasite feasts. And the sheer bizarre scale of its motivation? It's truly cosmic. It literally describes our memories as an existential fabric, a feast laid out by the universe itself. The crazy part is, it isn't just feeding itself, it's using the raw emotional energy of human memories, everything from burning hot plates of trauma to just totally random, boring moments from decades ago, to actually revitalize its entire home planet.
What makes this memory eater so philosophically terrifying is just how incredibly opportunistic it is. It absolutely thrives when we start mixing up fantasy with ragged reality, pushing us deeper into states where we can't even distinguish between the two anymore. It haunts our neurons, and sometimes it devours lives so completely that the host literally falls into a coma. It's a stark reminder that our consciousness, it isn't some permanent, impenetrable shield. It's a fluctuating resource. And when it drops, it's basically sending out an open invocation for these infernal parasites to move right in.
Next up, Section 3, the War of Cognitive Errors.
We're transitioning now to a deeply confused, really tragic entity wandering the eerie plains of a place called Sui. It's an alien soldier, and you have to consider this tragic sequence of events. First, the soldier is dispatched to war by elected leaders who are driven purely by empty rhetoric and conformity. Second, they arrive in a realm populated entirely by mirrors. Third, completely lacking the sense of sight, they just start firing their weapons blindly. And fourth, naturally, all their own projectiles reflect right back at them. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute horrific consequences of blind obedience, combined with a total lack of true perception.
Eventually, the soldier comes to this incredibly chilling realization. The whole thing is a dystopic nightmare of their own making, exploiting the one specific sense they lacked. It's such a profound metaphor for battling our own subjective cognitive errors. You see, the faceless unknowables they thought they were fighting, they were really just reflections of their own ignorance and violent assumptions. Their personal hell is waking up to the realization that their suffering was entirely self-generated. They failed to perceive reality accurately, and they paid the ultimate price for it.
All right, Section 4, Whispering to Annihilate Futures.
Now we are shifting gears from that sort of tragic confusion to pure, cold, calculated nihilism. We meet the ninja. This entity is highly deceptive and shadowy, operating by, as the text puts it, seeping underneath the floorboards of consciousness. It doesn't attack head-on like the soldier or the wizard. Instead, it functions completely silently in the background, just whispering lies directly into the ear. Its whole goal is to bind and constrain sanity before the victim even has a clue what's happening. And this leads us to what is perhaps the most chilling quote from the entire source material. Hell is early, hell is often, hell is infernal. The ninja essentially explains that timing is literally everything. To maximally destroy a human mind, the seeds of insanity and fear have to be planted early and often. Because if they wait too long, the mind's natural structures will actually resist. So this entity relies on that precise, frigid timing to ensure the absolute destruction of a person's potential futures.
The crucial philosophical point to grasp here is this architecture of nihilism. The ninja completely, 100% lacks empathy. It destroys futures simply because, why not? It weaponizes this state of perpetual befuddlement. It relies on raw, dumb luck, acting almost like a biological infection or a massive sociological breakdown to inject an everlasting inferno straight into a mind. It represents this mindless, organizational entropy that exists for no other reason than to tear down whatever consciousness tries to build up.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Determinism and the Hive Mind.
Our final entity brings this very buzzing, chaotic, and honestly slightly condescending perspective into our gallery. The hornet monster outright mocks human existence. It calls our lives a single straight line of suffocation, because we are bound so tightly by gravity and the inherent chains of our own biological determinism. In stark contrast, the hornet claims its existence harnesses the multidirectional chaos of the universe. It's just buzzing in all directions, totally free from the linear cognitive dissonance that so heavily plagues humanity.
Then, the hornet offers a really dark critique of what we humans like to call the eusocial superorganism. We tend to romanticize the hive mind as this universally cooperative, beautiful utopia. But the hornet, it breaks it down as brutal math. It calls it an artifice. Sure, the vast majority survive, but that survival relies mathematically on a neglected, broken few who are sacrificed or hurt sufficiently for the good of the whole. At the end of the day, it is just a brutal numbers game.
So, the hornet completely deconstructs this hive mind myth. It asserts that despite the nice, neat appearance of cooperation, all lives, literally down to the individual cellular level, remain incredibly selfish. It actually criticizes our human cognitive dissonance, suggesting we only view the hive as a superorganism because we're secretly pessimistic about the shockingly high rates of psychopathy within our own species. To the hornet, our collective survival is really just an architectural illusion. It's no different than those giant mud cathedrals built by termites. As we pull back from this bizarre psychological gallery, we are left with a pretty stark realization from the source text. Just raw, ragged reality. And despite its sharp existence, it is all there is. Whether we're looking at the wizard's hubris, the memory eater's cosmic feast, the soldier's tragic mirrored warfare, the ninja's quiet nihilism, or the hornet's brutal buzzing math, every single one of these entities reflects the sharp edges of consciousness itself.
They are literal personifications of the cognitive dissonance, the mental errors, and the deep vulnerabilities that exist right within the fabric of our own minds. Which brings us right to our final provocative thought for the day. Are you shaping your reality, or is your reality actually shaping you? Are your internal cognitive errors secretly dictating the hellish landscapes you might find yourself in, much like that blinded soldier? It is absolutely a question that demands we stop and evaluate our own perceptions of the world. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today. I really hope it leaves you thinking deeply about the nature of your own consciousness. See you next time.